Gurmageth, Chair, and thank you, Maeve and Donal, and you're both very welcome and well done on all of the work that you do, not just today, but all the time to promote growing and community gardens in particular. I suppose Maeve is coming from Mud Island in the North Inner City. It's my home constituency, Dublin Central, and I learned gardening from my granny, and she came from a generation who grew to sustain themselves, you know, and I think it's a really happy place to be in a garden. It's peaceful. You work at a pace that isn't as frenetic as the rest of our life in the big city. So in the North Inner City, it's not surprising that there's Mud Island, but there's also the Stony Batter Serenity Garden. Hardwick Street Flats have a project. And up in Cabra and on the Royal Canal by Liffey Junction, Cabra for Youth, I'm a founding director there, but we have a garden, and there's intergenerational work there with the young people working with senior citizens, the sharing, the education that Maeve, you referred to. So it's hugely important. De Courcy Square in Glasnevin, actually, that's an old railed plot of land that for a long time was closed to the residents, but now is a great and vibrant garden. So hugely important. I see your recommendations and I'm happy absolutely to support them, and I think as a committee we should support them. I think that You mentioned the model in Scotland, and maybe you could talk just a little bit about that. What benefits and advantages you think they have that would deliver for us? Because I think from a city perspective, we absolutely have to formalise and champion the community gardening. Gurmageth.
Thank you, Senator. So in terms of Scotland, I think I'll answer both in terms of Scotland and Wales, if that's okay, because they're both kind of similar in terms of how they did the approach. In Wales, in 2009, they performed a review of their community growing initiatives because they knew that they were not promoting it enough. They knew at a government level they were not doing enough. So from that came a report which came out from the Welsh Government in 2016. And from that was a list of guidance documents and recommendations, and also a clearing up of the legislation to make it easier for community groups to actually to follow the law. As I think we've shown, it can be very difficult and very confusing, and took a lot of time to even find out that there is legislation there that is no longer there in place. So the clearing up of that for communities to make it simple and digestible, I think is very important. Wales have actually gone a step forward. In 2021, they issued a second version of these guidance documents. So having that in place again and constantly revising is very, very useful for community groups, because you're seeing as communities grow, as cities grow, there is an overall changing guidance, which I think is very important. Scotland did similar as well. So Scotland have set up a national community growing forum where they have members from allotment groups, from community growers, from all manner of urban agriculture schemes who contribute to this, and they help guide the overall policy at a Scottish Government level. They've also highlighted the climate change impacts which come from allotments and community gardens. They have highlighted, I think it was, there's a 2 kilogram to 5 kilogram reduction in carbon when actually you are growing your food locally. So that's something that they've actually referenced, and I think it's important to call it out for this committee. They've put in place a waiting list so that people do not stay on it for a long amount of time. 5 years is what they recommended. They have details for a minimum number of people who make requests to a local authority, at which then the local authority must take action. So I suppose all these schemes, all these initiatives are purely at helping the local communities and making it easier for them. In my own case, I'm part of a group in Blessington who were seeking land from Wicklow County Council, and for 4 years we managed to find some private land, but we're still seeking public land. And I don't know if you know Blessington, but we're surrounded by green fields. Yeah. So what I'm saying is there needs to be a bigger emphasis and a time constraint put on this, and that's something we can definitely learn from countries such as Scotland and Wales.
I find that hard to believe that in Blessington there isn't enough land. When I think of the pockets that we've used in the city, you know, they're modest pieces of land, but what can be produced out of them and the activity and the value that it gives back to the wider community is just immense. It's multiplied many, many times. So, Guramagat, Donald.
Thank you.